Hey everyone, a lot of you guys have been asking me whether or not you guys should be buying Bitcoin because we just experienced the halving where the Bitcoin mining rewards were just sliced in half here. So today I just wanted to give you guys a broad opinion of what I'm doing right now, what you guys might be willing to do right now. That way you guys have some plans for whatever Bitcoin throws at you, alright? So, as you guys already know, as we just kind of talked about here a few seconds ago, when the Bitcoin halving happens, the reward for mining Bitcoin gets cut in half, which means there's going to be less Bitcoin out there over the next few weeks, next few months, next few years. It's going to go on and on and on. Now, from a technical perspective, what that means is there's going to be a lot less Bitcoin out there when the demand comes in for it. So if there's just less out there, that means the price is going to skyrocket. And for those of you guys that are buying right now, or you guys have maybe bought over the past few weeks, past few months, past few years, you guys are very happy with the results of Bitcoin over the past, let's just call it year or so, right? Since we had the FTX crash, it's been a pretty good rally since then. Now, Bitcoin did rally up to $74,000 before the halving, and that's caused a little bit of chaos here because everybody wants us to go straight from 74,000 to 80,000 to 90,000 to 200,000 and a big swath and a huge move. And I don't think that's going to be happening because of what we've been seeing with inflation. Inflation is really causing a lot of headaches for us because of interest rates, and this really goes all to what's happening in the Middle East right now. Unfortunately, there's a huge part of America that just we keep on spending lots of money. We all know that's kind of there, that's baked in. But the new thing that's been causing some turmoil here is the spit spats going on between Israel and Iran, Israel and Hamas, the Houthi rebels in the United States. Every time we have some type of battle close to the oil field, so to speak, we typically see oil prices go up, gas prices go up, thereby moving energy prices up as a whole, and that causing CPI and inflation to go up as a whole. Because again, if it costs more money to transport goods, get you from your house to dropping off your kids at school, maybe to your house to work, that means you have less money to spend on everything else. Maybe you don't go out to eat as much, which means that server doesn't get as many tips as they did before. You guys get the point here. Now, that's unfortunate right now, but that's where we are. If that can quiet down a little bit, that should give inflation a little bit of a pause, but it hasn't yet. So what I'm saying right now is I still think Bitcoin is bearish. The way I'm managing this is I'm continuing to dollar cost average. I am buying a little bit of Bitcoin every week, a little bit of Ethereum, Solana, Dogecoin, Ajax, Ocean Protocol, RLC, different meme tokens out there, like maybe a baby Dogecoin, Miro, other things like Book of Meme or Dog with Hat has been very, very profitable as of late. Those are some of the things I'm doing right now in order to just make sure that if Bitcoin does have a parabolic move, which could happen, which usually happens pretty randomly during these times, I will have a stake in there so it can rally up. However, when it comes to swing trades, I'm not going to be buying anything that I plan on holding for maybe 1 to 2 to 3 weeks at this point because the momentum is not on our side. Momentum is on the bear side right now, and it seems to be pushing us closer and closer and closer to $59,000. If Bitcoin were to break down below that level, we're going to come screaming back down, most likely towards $55,000, $56,000, if not coming all the way back down to maybe $53,000. And again, that really has to be figured out along with inflation data. If we're at $60,000 and then we have a bad inflation report coming out next month, that will collapse Bitcoin's price and push us all the way back down towards the mid 50s. However, let's say Israel, this type of stuff going on over there in the Middle East, it starts to settle down a little bit, oil prices come down a little bit, that'll give Bitcoin a big boost, and that should take us back up towards $75,000, if not $80,000 pretty darn quickly once that settles down. Now, one of the things I think you guys have to understand is this may not be a halving that leads into a very large move that happens within maybe a month or two. And that's really just because of what we've been seeing again from those interest rates. At this point in time, the Fed is talking about zero interest rates until 2025. That means Bitcoin might not go parabolic until the end of 2025. The beginning of 2025. As far as I'm concerned, based off of all the mistakes I've seen the Fed been making over the past few years, I actually think we should still be okay for making a large move, at least towards the end of 2024. And the reasoning is the Fed will always forecast its intention. For better or worse, it's done it before. Remember, guys, back in December, You could even see October, November, really. The Fed started to say we're getting close to no more rate hikes. When the market saw that, they said, oh, wow, if there's going to be no more rate hikes, I can buy right now because the market should be going higher after this is official down the road. And so we saw Bitcoin start to spike. We saw the NASDAQ, the SPY, Dow Jones, Russell 2000. They all started to spike because people knew ahead of time what was going to be happening. Now, unfortunately, they were all pricing in rate cuts happening in March. Then it got pushed out to June, then September. Now not until January of 2025, which is kind of crazy. However, if we start to see oil prices plummet, whether that is from a bad economy or the Middle East is simmering down, or maybe a combination of both of them, that alone should bring inflation back down towards the lower threes. I'm talking about 3 or 3.1%, which would be absolutely fantastic. That is going to hit a little bit of headwinds because as we go into the summer months, people like to drive, the demand starts to go up. However, hopefully, if the economy starts to slow down just a tad, along with the Middle East stuff, that should be enough to get inflation back down there. Not to the 2% target that the Fed was looking for, but just enough for everybody to say, hey, now we can start pricing in a cut maybe in September, maybe in November or October. And that's where the market will again start thinking ahead of time. And that's where you start to see Bitcoin going up a lot higher. You start to see, everything as a whole start to pump up a little bit more. This is going to be a month by month type of thing that you guys are going to be paying attention to. And it's going to get kind of boring in certain parts. I know the last month has been very boring because we've pretty much been going up gradually to have a sharp decline, up gradually to have a very sharp decline. And every time we're here, it just feels like crapola because we're all so excited to maybe break out for another all-time high, and it just never comes. And I don't think it's going to come until we at least see gas prices come down a little bit. They're up like 20, 30 cents on average, I think, in the past week or two alone. So things are not getting easier. However, I think the average American is getting a second job right now, and that's keeping the economy going because they still have to pay their rent, which is getting up, and the rent's getting more expensive, food's more expensive, everything's more expensive. Trust me, I just got back from Vegas. I know everything's more expensive. But the big thing is here, the economy overall is still holding up. It may not be strong like the media or CNBC or Fox Business, like they say is strong. I wouldn't say the economy is strong, but I would say we're resilient, and even though we're under stress, we're still managing to hold out. So if the government can keep doing what it's doing, keeping rates where they're at, and let's say us, middle class, lower class, upper class, if we can just keep on doing what we're doing, for the most part, I think we should see inflation come down over the next few months. Now, again, not to less than 3%, but at least back down to 3.2, 3.1. And that'll be enough for the Fed to say, hey, we're starting to see meaningful drops. Let's do one cut for 2024. I don't know much more about that, but that should get the market going. Unfortunately, what this may mean for us is we may start to see the rally coming along this summer, but we might not see the peak until 2025, which would be a very weird mood because typically, as you guys know, we're used to seeing the halving and then a very large move within 1 to 2 months. I don't think Wall Street is going to hop all into these Bitcoin ETFs until we start to see those rate cuts. I think once those rate cuts happen, hedge funds, hedge fund babies, hedge fund grandparents, whoever in the hedge fund community, they're just going to start hopping into those Bitcoin ETFs, and they're going to be able to make some really good money off of them, no matter which one they're looking at. Grayscale, BlackRock, ARK Invest, Bitwise, whatever. They're all going to be looking very, very good there. But we're going to have to see that rate cut happen first. And for more specifically, for a lot of you guys that are looking for that life-changing wealth, typically that doesn't really come from Bitcoin. It usually will come from altcoins. And I don't think we're going to see an altcoin season until we have maybe 2 or 3 cuts. It may get started within one cut, but I think it's going to take 2 or 3 cuts before we start reaching the peak there. So once we have that first cut, I think more will follow. And I don't think the Middle East is going to get much hotter than where it is now. So we might have hit a peak from there, but it's going to have to stay cool for a while. That doesn't mean it's going to go down, but it's going to stay probably steady and kind of spicy here for a minute. Once it starts going down, I do think we should see oil prices come back down just enough to maybe offset some of that summer demand, and that should be enough for oil to come down a tad, of course, and that really give a little bit of lift a little bit of pressure that's coming from the CPI data, right? Or help out the CPI data in that way. For all of your other tokens out there, everybody, dollar cost averaging seems to be the best way forward right now. I know you long-term investors have been dollar cost averaging as well, but we're getting to that point where you might even see a pretty good dip. Or typically, I like to do my longer dollar cost averaging, or my, for long-term plays. That's usually under the 100 or the 150 weekly moving averages, where the price of Bitcoin is in full on panic bear mode. I don't think we're there. I don't even think we're close, to be honest. But again, we still have a long way to go. I'm sure we're going to get there to have some really nice moves on the upside, but it definitely feels like it's not going to be a nice grinding motion up. It's going to be one of those janky grinds where we're freaking out every single day, and the ones that are winning are the ones that just buy and hold through all the turmoil. They don't have a leverage of 5 or 10 or 20x as they hold. They have a leverage of 2 or 3 at the max, maybe a 1x leverage if they're really playing it safe, and they're going to have a lot of capital on the side to make sure that they have zero chance of being liquidated. That's going to be one of the keys here for the next few months if you guys want to go trading and doing some of these long-term bets, long-term positions. You are going to have to make sure that even if you have money in your account and it's actually bought in tokens, it's being used to make you money, you're going to have money on the sidelines there just as an extra source of protection, because as you guys know, altcoins can drop 33% on a dime. If you have a 3x leverage, guess what? That just means that entire position is down 100%, which unfortunately could lead to a liquidation if you are in an isolated trade. So it's imperative that you guys are going to be able to play this safe. But to finish this thing up here, I'm not really buying much at this point. I'm just doing dollar cost averaging. Day traders, I think you guys are perfectly fine. Just follow along on those 5-minute and 15-minute charts. I think you guys are okay if you guys are looking at those larger support levels. But the easier way to go about it is just to wait for the 4-hour chart to turn bullish, the 1-hour chart to turn bullish, and then from there you guys can have a lot of fun on the 5 and 15-minute moving chart. After that, for those larger moves where you're swing trading for 1, 2, 3 weeks, I really don't see much hope there until we see Bitcoin on the weekly chart turn back to being positive, and on the daily chart being back turning back to being positive. And so for that reason, I'm just going to sit back and relax and enjoy the markets and do some day trading and do some market research on the tokens I like, and then also start working on some of those AI projects I've been talking about there as well. I really want to see Bitcoin go up, but a lot of this has to do with what's going on in the market. So if you guys feel that, hey, you want to have some exposure, do a little bit of dollar cost averaging. That's not going to hurt, and that'll be a nice hedge for you. Otherwise, you guys are basically just sticking to dollar cost averaging as far as your very long-term investments, which at this point, like I said, I probably would just be waiting for a move to happen later on when we've already broken down, and that's maybe a year or so from now. Or you guys are being patient, just sitting on your hands and waiting for one of those nice moves to occur that will juice you up and get you more excited about Bitcoin. It means you might not catch the bottom, but when the momentum comes back around, which I'm hoping for maybe the next month or so, then you guys can latch on to it and ride it up for an easy profit before, again, waiting maybe a few weeks to a month before you have to make another trade. But the money you made in that move will make you a lot of money in the short term, right? So see you guys a little bit later, and thanks for listening.